Hi everyone, in this video we would be discussing the entire Ielts academic syllabus, and we would also be discussing all the sections in extreme detail, and then we would be solving few of the practice tests. So before watching this video, make sure to have yourself prepared. Hi everyone, this is a revision series of IELTS Academic, and in this video I would be basically discussing the pattern of the exam structure, the marking scheme, as well as what you need to be aware of before attempting a particular section. So I would be making a series of 2 to 3 videos in which I'll be covering everything. In this particular video, I will be discussing IELTS, and then I will be discussing the key points which you need to keep in mind before attempting each section and how to go about attempting the sections. So make sure to check the description box below. I would be linking the entire playlist. Also, make sure to keep a notebook handy with you and make notes of anything you think is important. So IELTS is basically an English language testing system, and in case you are going abroad for your education, then you need to give the IELTS academic exam, and if you are going for immigration purpose or if you are going for the work purpose, then you have to give the general test. This video I would be focusing on the academic version, so make sure that you are watching this video only if you are going to take the academic version. Alright, so IELTS for UKVI is for the people who are going to the United Kingdom. So when you are signing up for the exam, make sure to check everything and make sure that you are checking and ticking on the option which is relevant for you. There are two ways to take the IELTS academic paper. The first thing is on paper and the second is on computer. I would advise that everybody must be taking it on computer, since that would give you a little bit faster edge in typing an essay or typing the writing skills, because since we are also habitual of using the laptops and using our phones, our typing speed is faster as compared to writing. However, that is your call, it's up to you, whatever suits you better. Alright, so there are 3 sections. The first thing is the listening section, the second thing is the reading section, and the third is writing. So this is the paper which you have to attempt on the same day, and then you also have the IELTS speaking test as well. So the reading and the writing tests have specific focus on the academic English, whereas when you take the general test, that would be something which would be related to generality. The listening, reading and writing tests, they are going to be taking place one after the other on the same day when you go for the exam. However, you need to keep in mind that there are no breaks between the tests. The speaking test can take place up to 7 days before or after the listening, reading and writing test. So make sure that you keep it in mind that this is the pattern which they are going to be following. So going on listening test, I will be discussing the computer. In case you wish to give it on paper, you can read this as well. So IELTS on computer. So what is IELTS on computer? It approximately 30 minutes listening test, right? And 2 minutes to check your answers. So you are supposed to type in the answers as in when you're hearing it, and you have 2 minutes where you can check the answer, or if you have missed typing something, you can do that in that 2 minutes. There are 4 recordings, and the number of questions are 40 questions. So you would be given 40 questions in the listening section, and each question would be containing 1 mark. Questions may be multiple choice, they can even be matching, planning, map, diagram labeling, form or note, table, flowchart, summary or sentence completion. So these are the types of questions which would be there in your listening skills section, and in the further video I would be discussing each of the question type, and I'll make you guys understand how to go about them. Then we have the reading section. Again, in the reading section we are given 60 minutes, and whereas in your listening you are given approximately 30 minutes, right? In the 60 minutes exam, 3 academic texts, 40 questions are given, and each question basically carries 1 mark only. And then we have the writing sections. In the writing sections, we have 2 writing tasks. The first thing is describing visual information. So some kind of visual information is given. So since it is an academic test, right? and then you are supposed to write a paragraph or an essay on that particular visual graphic. That would be the first task. The second task would be responding to a point of view argument or a problem. So, an argument would be given in the paper, and you are supposed to write an essay over that, assessed. And so, one more thing, how are they going to mark your writing skills, since there is no particular answer key on the of the same, right? Whereas for listening and reading, the answer key is already there with the examiner, but writing is very subjective in nature. So they are going to mark you on four criteria: task achievement, response, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and grammatical range and accuracy. We'll discuss that further. Okay, so then we also have the speaking. So speaking would basically be about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, question and answer, long run, and discussion. It's going to be very easy if you are confident enough and if you have a good vocabulary. It is going to be delivered face to face, and there is one speaking examiner with you who is going to be marking your test. It would be according to the fluency in your language, coherence, the lexical resource. Lexical resource is basically the vocabulary and the kind of words you are using in the test, and then also your grammar, whether you are making any grammatical errors or not, accuracy, and pronunciation. Speaking of the test results, the results would be available between 3 to 5 days after completing all the four parts. That means that even after completing the speaking test, right? It's after that. And you will also be receiving a copy of your IELTS academic test report form, two copies. Okay, so this you can just read it if you want to. Moving on to the band scores. Now this is what is a band score. You should be aiming for a 8 band score, and I know that most of you would be like, that's way too much. But if you won't be aiming at 8 or 9, you won't even be able to land at 7. So I want you guys to prepare in with the view that you want a 9 band score, and then give your best shot, and then eventually we can see what your score is. So if you get a 9 band score, that means you are expert. 8 means very good user, 7 means good user, 6 is competent, 5 is modest, and so on. If you have a 0 band score, that means that you have not attempted the test. Okay, so listening tips. English being spoken so you need to listen to various accents, since various accents are going to be tested in them. One passage might have British English, one can have an American accent, one can have an Indian accent, one can have a Canadian accent. So the accents might be different in each passages. So that is to check whether you are capable enough to go to that country in order to pursue your education, and would you be able to survive and communicate over there. Make word list of common IELTS topics and learn them, the more words. So this is how listening topic. So if you practice many tests, then giving the IELTS exam would be easy for you. Learn how to listen for specific information. Name, date, telephone, number. So these are the kind of things which would be given in the question, and you are supposed to listen to the phone number which the lady is dictating in the passage, and you have to write it on your paper. So paying attention to detail is very important. Develop note-taking skills. So as in when you hear something which you think is important, write it down. We come to the academic reading tips. Wide range of academic texts and articles. Note new vocabulary. Again, if you have a habit of reading since childhood, then that's going to be good for you. But if not, then even if you're left with a week for the exam or 2 days for the exam, just practice more and more reading comprehensions, and read books in general, and read newspapers or articles and various magazines, since that would basically help you build your vocabulary. Develop the following reading skills: skimming, getting the gist, scanning, looking for specific information, and reading in detail. So this is something you need to keep in mind. So what they are saying is that since you have a limited time, and since you have limited time to answer the questions, it might be a task for you. So what you're supposed to do is that, what I suggest would be, first read the questions quickly, and then you skim through the passage, scan and look for the information, and then you can read in detail. Practice guessing the meaning of words from the context. So, if you're not able to understand the meaning of any particular passage over there, then you need to practice how to guess it. Identify IELTS academic reading questions that you find difficult and do some extra practice. So, when you keep doing many sample papers, you'll understand something which you are finding difficult and focus more on that. Moving on to the writing section, learn how to read and interpret charts, graphs, tables, and diagrams. So, even though they're going to be very simple in nature, but you need to be aware of how to read a pie chart, how to read a bar graph, or other basic things like that, because you need to, there will be questions which would be asking you to elaborate on the same. Learn how to identify and describe general trends. Learn how to identify and describe important details, introduction, overview, and details. So, whenever you are writing a particular task, make sure to follow this particular format. First, you are introducing the passage and introducing, and in your first paragraph, it should basically speak about the introduction and it should show that how you are introducing the topic. And then you can have an overview of what exactly can be expected by reading this paragraph, and then you can have all the detailing stuff. Task 2, learn how to analyze an essay question and break it down into parts. Practice structuring paragraphs. One main idea, then we have supporting ideas, main idea expressed in a topic sentence. Learn how to use a range of connecting and linking expressions accurately. Using the following format: introduction, 2 or 3 main body paragraphs, and conclusion. So it's extremely important for you to have an introduction paragraph and a concluding paragraph. That would give the examiner a feel of, that this person is aware of what he or she is writing. And I know you guys must be wondering that why are we going into this much detail of the way the questions are going to come, because you need to be aware of this, because this is what is going to help you get a 9 band score. You can't just go and dive into solving the practice tests. You need to have a base of the format and the structure and the tips and tricks which you need to be aware of. Speaking tips. So spend some time speaking English every day, and I feel like most of you must have studied in English school, so it might not be a problem, but even if you haven't, it's okay, you will be able to do it. The fact that you are able to understand this video itself shows that you are already fluent in English. Listen as much to natural as spoken English, develop your spoken vocabulary using word lists, practice answering IELTS speaking questions, and record yourself and analyze your performance. Go on YouTube, go on internet and search for the speaking test of IELTS. You will be given various prompts, you will be given various of the questions which have been asked in the past. You need to practice them. What are the common IELTS topics? Sports and leisure. They'll ask you to speak about sports and you have to speak about it. Something like, I love sports. Sports will help me be fit. I pursue this particular sport and I have won this particular award, or sports is going to be doing this to my health and my health is going to improve by this. So you just have to take a particular topic and speak about it confidently for about a minute or so, and then the examiner will be grading you on that basis. Tourism. So what is tourism and what do you think about the tourism industry? And what are the suggestions according to you for the tourism industry? Traditions and modern life. Speaking about how the modern life does not inculcate few of the traditional values which were harmful for us, and how do you think that the modern life is inculcating the good traditional life into the modern life? Transport. What do you think about transportation? How essential is transportation? TVs, mobile phones, and the internet. So the gadgets, the 21st century, the gadgets and the social media, the technological advancement which has taken place in this century, and it has been boon to the mankind. So speaking about this with a good vocabulary. Environment and pollution, global warming. So we know that since a while our planet is getting polluted to a very massive extent, and linking it with your real life and giving examples and speaking about it. Government and society. How is the government helping the society? What are the kind of schemes that the government is providing for the betterment of society? The society is basically being lifted by the government or something like that. Housing and buildings. So when you look around yourself, like right now I'm looking outside my window and I can see so many buildings and so many housing. So what do you think about housing, and what do you think about buildings? What do you think about high rise buildings and so on? Health. How important is health, work and career, professional life? Speaking about your work, speaking about your professional life and so on. So these are very very basic topics, and you just have to think about them and create small small pointers in your head, like what I just spoke to you on the spot. I've been just reading these topics and giving you a few points which came on to my mind, and those are the points which I would be elaborating and speaking upon, right? So it's very simple, don't stress about it. Moving on. Okay, so now let's go to a deeper guide on the listening skills. Okay, so time approximately you have 30 minutes with you. If you take the paper based test, then you will be given an additional 10 minutes, because you have to transfer what you have written on your paper to your answer sheet. But if you're doing it with a computer test, that will not be given. And number of parts, you have 4 parts. So the part 1 would be a social dialogue. So what do you understand by social dialogue? It would be a conversation between two people in a social situation. It's just going to be a very normal conversation between two people. So that would be the part 1, that would be a social dialogue. For example, it can be a conversation between a customer and a shop assistant. So that social dialogue would be played for you to understand and listen to, and after you listen to that, there would be few questions which would be asked after that. Thus part 2, or the second type of the listening test, would be social monologue. So it is a monologue in an everyday social setting, like for example, a short talk given by a tour guide to a group of visitors. So what is the difference between the part 1 and the part 2? Similarities are that both of them are in a social situation or a social scene theme. But the first one would be a conversation between two people, and the second one would be a monologue, which means only one person would be speaking, right? So that's that. And then we have an educational dialogue. So this is for you them to test your academic way of understanding. Are you able to understand the academic English as well? So then we have an educational dialogue. What is an educational dialogue? The third part is a conversation between two or more people in an educational or a training situation. For example, it can be a teacher and a student discussing something or so on. Then the fourth one is again an educational monologue. So that would be on an academic subject. For example, a university lecture of, let's say, environment, any particular academic topic, it would be a monologue. So these are the 4 parts which you would be having. The first one would be a social dialogue where two people are conversing. The second would be a social monologue, and then you have an educational conversation where two people are conversing, and the fourth one would be an educational monologue. Okay, so the number of questions would be 4 again, and each particular part would be having 10 questions. Each part may have 1, 2 or 3 tasks for you to do. The number of questions per task would be varying, but then the overall questions would be 10, 10, 10. Also, the initial parts, the questions are going to be easy, but as you move ahead, the questions become more difficult in the test. But nothing to worry about, because it's not that difficult. It's very simple. You just need to be mentally present, and you need to be able to understand whatever they are saying. Okay, moving on. How is the listening skill basically marked? The Ielts listening test is marked by very certificated markers, right? So they are themselves examiners, and your paper is not the only one which they are correcting. A lot of them have already corrected the same particular exam, right? Band score conversion. So Cambridge Assessment English produces a band score. So band score is basically what we saw, 1 to 9, 1 to 10, right? So that it was 1 to 9. So overview of task types. So what are the type of tasks, or what are the types of questions which are given to you in your listening skills? Let's see that. So there are number of possible task types. We are going to look at each of them in detail. So the first thing is a multiple choice task. So you will be given a question or the start of a sentence, and you have to basically just choose the answer from the options. So if you have heard the passage well, there are options given below. You just have to tick on the correct option. So this is what is my multiple choice question, right? So sometimes you might have to choose two correct answers from the five possible choices. So you need to very well be aware and listen to what exactly the passage said. Also, the passage will be played only once, so make sure that you listen to it carefully since it won't be repeated. Also, besides that, you need to make notes and you need to note down whatever you think is important from the starting itself. Then we have the matching tasks. So, what exactly is a matching task? You might have to match people, places, scores, etc. to three statements or ideas that can be used more than once. So, this type of task is similar to a multiple choice task. So, wherein you have to match a paragraph with a title or so on. You have to match a number of statements or ideas to people, places, courses that can be used once. For example, they are going to give you five hotels, and they in the conversation they will tell you that hotel A is near the seaside, hotel B is near the city, hotel C is at the outskirts, something like that. So you need to keep in mind and match which hotel is in the outskirts, which hotel is near the sea, and so on. Don't worry about that. In the following videos, we would be solving questions of the same. Then we have a labeling task. So what exactly is a labeling task? You might be given a plan of an area or a building, a map or a diagram which has labels on it. So the labels which are given would be blank, and you are supposed to fill in the blanks as they dictate in the test. Completion task using words from recording. So now we might have short answer type questions and so on, wherein a blank is given and you are supposed to fill in with the particular answer. And sometimes the answer can be in units, for example 40 meters or 40 grams or 100 kilometers. So if the unit of measurement is not given in the question, you have to write it. You can't just be like 40. You have to write 40 m, 40 km, or so on. You can't leave it blank like that by just writing 40. In case km is already given in the question, then you obviously don't have to write. These are the things which will cut your marks, by the way. Okay, and one thing to keep in mind, the you will be told the maximum number of words you should write. So it will be given in the question that fill in the blank with only 2 words. If you fill it with 3 words, you will automatically be the marks would be deducted. Moving on to the completion task using words from a list. Just a second. Yeah, so a list of words or phrases, which means same as some of the words, would be given in the recording. So you have to basically paraphrase, right? The words which are given in the lists would be similar to what was heard in the passage, but it would be paraphrased. So now it's on how you basically comprehend what you have heard and linked it, and you have to see that is this the same thing or not. We'll be seeing it in further detail, don't worry. You have to choose the correct ones to complete a form, summary, flowchart, etc. Short answer questions. So short questions are given and you have to listen for a word or phrase from the recording to answer the question. In each task, you will be told the maximum number of words to write. Now let's come to specific tips which are required for the listening test. So there are many types of tasks, so it's important to know what exactly you should do, right? And that's exactly the reason why I'm discussing this entire thing right now. If I wanted, I can just start with practicing questions, but you need to be aware of the question types and what exactly is expected from you. If you're given a word limit, such as write no more than 2 words for each answer, please make sure that you are adhering to the rules which are given in the paper. Test expert, write 1 word only. When they say that use only 1 word as your answer, Do not be over smart and do not write 2 words, because that would be leading to the deduction of marks. Each answer is only one word. You should write the word exactly as you hear it. You don't need to change the form. You don't need to paraphrase it. You should not do any of those things. If they themselves paraphrase and give it in the options, that is different. But if you have to hear and write it in your paper, then you have to write it exactly as you hear it. Contractions. Short forms, for example, didn't, are not tested, right? So didn't, won't, hasn't, those are the kind of contractions which are not tested, right? Hyphenated words. So what is hyphenated words? So when you put a hyphen between two words, they are known as hyphenated words. So when you put a hyphen, it is counted as one single word. So keep that in your mind. Next instruction. Write no more than 2 words. In that situation, please don't write words which are more than 2 words, right? Each answer can be 1 word or 2 words. You should write the word or phrase exactly as you hear it. So if it's 2 words, these words must be said one after the other in the recording. Okay. Okay. Write no more than 1 word and or a number. So what do they mean by that? Each answer is 1 word and a number. So for example, numbers, for example, 1000, or as words, for example, 1000. So either ways you are matching with the instruction which is given. If the instructions say and or a number, then at least one answer will include a number. So when they mention that or when they say that in the question, you need to automatically understand that it is going to be containing a number in the answer. Write no more than 2 words or number. Each answer is 1 word, 2 word, and 1 word and a number, 2 words and a number, or just a number. Okay? All that we'll be able to practice when you hear the recordings. You only hear each recording once, so that's why I've been discussing everything in detail. Since you are only going to hear it once, it is extremely important for you to keep it in mind. The question always follow the order in which you hear the recording. So, in which you hear the recording, that is how the questions are going to be followed. The first question, second question, third, fourth, fifth, the passage will go on in the same order. It's never going to be like the first line of the paragraph had an answer for the fifth question. It's not going to be like that. Everything is going to be in a systematic order and in a linear order. So don't worry about that. Keep up with the recording. You only hear each recording once, you won't get another chance. So you need to write the answer the moment you hear it. For this reason, it's important not to get stuck on a question. If you did not hear one answer and if that question ended, do not just stick to it. Move on to the next question and at least complete the passage. Keep listening or you might miss the answer to the next question too. Exactly. Always make sure you are at the right place. Answer all the questions. So don't miss any of the questions because none of the questions have a negative marking anyway. So you might as well just answer all the questions which are given in your exam. You might find some questions difficult and might not be sure of your answer. Think carefully and choose what you think is probably correct. Don't leave any answers blank. Your answer may be correct and you won't lose marks for a wrong answer. Transfer your answers at the end. So it's different for the paper-based paper. So in the paper-based paper, you are supposed to transfer the answers when the 10 minutes are given. Okay. Now let's go and see how exactly are we supposed to go on with the method of solving the questions. So how do I solve a particular type of question? So first we come to a multiple choice questions which have a single answer. How am I supposed to solve them? So first a passage would be played for you to listen and then questions like this would be given. Choose the correct letter A, B or C. So you are supposed to choose one. And in the solution paper they will ask you to write A, B or C. So don't write the entire thing if it's mentioned in the question. So these are how your MCQ questions would be given. So listen for ideas, not words and phrases. For example, in the question 1, the tutor says that not all students hand in essays on time, attend all lectures, complete the course. So you are supposed to hear for words like hand in, attend, or complete. You might not hear the answer because it's quite possible that the speaker doesn't say any of them. So obviously only one thing would be the answer. So maybe the you need to see what exactly did the teacher mention in the paragraph. In the number 2, there are names of specific courses, so law, sociology, or criminology. You will probably hear only one of the course which was recommended to Alicia, so that is also something you need to keep in mind. So what happens is that in some of the questions they wantedly confuse you by saying something like the tutor says to Alicia that, hey Alicia, you should be taking law. Then Alicia is like, but I'm not really interested in law. Then the teacher is like, oh no, then you're not supposed to take law. You are supposed to take sociology. So what would be the correct answer? The correct answer would be sociology, right? Because Alicia corrected her teacher and then the teacher gave a new recommendation which was sociology. So they basically try to confuse you. The answer would be sociology and not law, right? Okay. A step by step approach, read the questions before you listen. So that is something I would recommend to each one of you, that first you need to read the questions which are given, and after you read the question then you can hear the paragraph and listen to the key ideas which are given in the paragraph. Listen for these ideas, not specific words and phrases in questions. Choose the answer that exactly matches the information that you hear. Okay. So that was the multiple type question in case the answer is just one. Like I've discussed in the starting that there might be some multiple choice questions which might have answers which are more than one. So how are you going to attempt that? Choose two letters from A to E. So you need to choose any two letters. So what places to shop are recommended? Which two places? See, they have even made it bold, right? So you will be selecting two of them. Test expert. Think of this task as being the same as single answer, but two questions are combined into one. So which place to shop is recommended, which other place? So that's two answers, right? So that's what they're saying. Step-by-step approach. Make sure you understand how many correct answers are needed. Carefully read the question. Listen to these ideas, not specific words or phrases in the question. Choose the answer that exactly match the information you hear. Moving on to the matching type of questions. So what do you have? What does Lucy tell her tutor about the following course options? She'll definitely do it. She may or may not do it. She won't do it either. So A, B, C. Next to one, write the correct letter A, B or C next to the questions 1 to 4. NB. You may choose any letter more than once. Okay. So after hearing the passage you will know whether she's interested to programming. If she had said something like she'll do it, then A. If she said that she won't do it, then you'll write C. If she said that she might do it, then you will write B. So that's how you are going to answer these questions. Okay. Before you listen, look at the numbered questions and see if their names or ideas. If their names, you'll probably hear those names in the recording, so that will help you. Before you listen, look at the A, B, C options. Think of this as a multiple choice task with 3 options. Listen carefully for the ideas rather than specific words. So before you attempt, before the paragraph reading starts playing, the listening, so before they start narrating the paragraph, you need to be skimming through the question. That would help you. Okay. Moving on to the next example. Which description matches each hospital? Choose 5 answers from the box and write correct letter A to G. So these are the descriptions which are given and you need to match it with the questions. So for example, if you heard that the Mackenzie hospital basically uses a new method of cleaning, you will write F over here. If you heard that the Old Creek Hospital offers lesson on growing food, then you will write C. So you need to match the questions with the A, B, C, D, E, F. Always remember this numbering are the questions, so these are the ones which you have to match. Okay, see, that's what they have also written over here. Before you listen, make sure you understand the information in the lettered list and the numbered question. Identify keywords and phrases. When the recording starts, listen for ideas and not for individual keywords. Next we have diagram labeling. So what exactly is diagram labeling? A diagram like this is going to be given and you are basically supposed to choose 5 answers from the box and write the correct letter next to the questions. So these are the questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and this is going to be given. This box would be given to you which contains the answers of everything. What you are supposed to do is after you listen to the paragraph, you are supposed to connect it with the diagram and write it down as they have basically said. Okay. Remember that if there's an unknown vocabulary in the list of words or phrases, you'll probably hear it in the recording because you're not expected to know technical terminology. So don't be worried and don't think, oh my god, I don't know what soil analysis is. How am I going to answer this? Because things like that are given in a very generic basis so that every single student is able to understand it whether or not they belong to a particular field or not. Okay. Moving on, before you listen, okay, one more thing. Also remember that the information in the recording will follow the order of the numbered question and not the lettered list. So the recording would be in the order of the questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and not according to the answer list. So don't go according to the ABCs. Okay? Before you listen, ask yourself what the diagram is showing. Look at the things you have to label. Ask yourself what they might be. Look at the list of possible answers and see which ones you understand. Don't worry, don't panic if there are words which you don't know. Think about which ones are most likely to fill the gap. As you listen, follow the diagram carefully. Listen for words or phrases such as next to, above, on the right to help you. So technical terms, they do not expect you to comprehend them. Don't worry about that. Run through the list of options. If you're sure if it's the answer, put a line through it or tick it. Don't use a letter more than once. So whenever you are doing the diagram labeling type of questions, one letter can be used only once. Again, now this is a map question and this would for sure be tested in your question, something like this. So they are going to basically narrate a passage which will show you that about the map. For example, they will show you something like I have entered through the west road and towards the left of me there is this building, towards the right of me there is this building, and then if you go straight there is a main reception and beside the main reception there is a cafeteria, something like that. So you are supposed to basically label all of them. So how are you going to solve such a question? A plan might show you the rooms and perhaps some features inside a building. While a map might show you a number of buildings, roads, and other features, there are two different ways this task might be presented. In the first type, like the example which is given, you have letters marking different places. You are given the names of the places and you have to decide which of the letters would go on the paper, right? That's what is given. In the second type, which is the second example, here you see here inside numbers are given and not the alphabets. In the previous one we saw that the alphabets are given inside the map. So this one is relatively easy, right? Why? Because we already know that the answer, the question would be dictated in a way that it follows the sequence of the questions, right? Remember that whichever type it is, the information in the recording will always follow the order of the numbers and not the letters. So always remember that whatever passage is playing, it will be following the order of the questions. It means it will be following the order of the numbers only and not the letters. Okay. Before you listen, study the plan or map carefully. Make sure you understand what you need to listen for and in what order the information will appear in the recording. Listen for directions and relationships between places. Listen for paraphrasing of the ideas. Completion using words from the recording. Now, this is another type of question that would be completion of the sentences which are given. So, no more than 3 words. When they have said that do not write more than 3 words, you need to know that you need to complete the sentences with only 3 words or less. Having security lights is a common way of stopping dash around your house. So this would again be given in the voice recording and you need to answer it according to them. So remember that you never need to change the form of a word. What they say, exactly that you need to write down. Alright, so where were we? Remember that you never need to change the form of a word or a phrase that you hear to make to fit the gap. So you don't ever have to do that, right? Keep that in mind. Read the sentences before you finish. Predict the part of speech. Now, what do I mean by part of speech? We're talking about the verbs, the adjectives, and the nouns. You need and possible answers. Listen for ideas from the sentences, not specific words and phrases. Complete the sentences as you listen. So as and when you listen to the sentences, then make sure that you are filling the answer right there and then because you might forget. Okay. The next type is the note example. So you all must have done note making in your high school, if I'm not wrong. So you just have to listen to what they say, and notes are basically when you're concising descriptive information into smaller pointers and making notes of the same. So a passage would be read out and a note would be given, and then you are supposed to basically complete the note. Keep in mind that you are supposed to complete the note with the exact words that you are hearing in the passage. Vertical farming, urban alternative to country farming. Crops are planted in dash placed on each other. So you just have to fill all these. Remember that these are notes and so often use note form. In note form, we sometimes leave out grammar words such as articles or and auxiliary verbs. So if you think of this, urban alternative to country farming, that's the point, right? They didn't write that it is an urban alternative to country farming. So you are basically making things into a crisp format. That's what notes really are. So sometimes the verbs, the auxiliary verbs as well as the articles might be left. Before you listen, read the title and headings to identify the topic. So you need to identify read the headings as well as the subtopics before you start with the particular thing. Try to understand the notes without worrying about the words you don't know. Predict possible answers. Complete the notes as you listen. Okay. Now next, I will show you one more. This is another type of question, that is the flowchart completion. Now, what do you understand by a flowchart completion? You are supposed to write one word or a number for each answer. So making a travel insurance claim. So by reading this heading, I basically understood that the passage which is read out to me is going to talk about how to make a travel insurance claim. So they are going to discuss or narrate the procedure of making one. So I'm going to listen to it and fill in the flowchart. So this is again testing your listening acumen. A flowchart presents different stages in a process. The movement from stage to stage is usually indicated with arrows. Sometimes arrows of branch off. This indicates some kind of choice or different situation. If one thing happens, it goes one way, and if another thing happens, it goes another way. Remember that flowcharts might be in a note form. In note form, we sometimes leave out grammar words such as a or an and auxiliary verbs. Okay? Moving on. Step-by-step approach. Before you listen, look at the flowchart carefully and try to understand as much about the process as you can. Use the title to help you. Look at each question. So look at the headings, look at the questions before you basically start listening to the passage. Ask yourself what is the main idea of the particular passage, or what is the grammatical structure which is going to fill each gap. Follow the stages. So again, I've repeated this a multiple times, but the passage will go on in the structure of the questions itself. It will be going in the same order, so you need to keep that in mind. Complete each gap. Next, we have the next type of question, that is the table completion. Here you would be given tables which have some gaps within them and which are incomplete in nature. You are basically supposed to fill in the gaps as you go ahead with the questions. Like, and always and always read the type of words which are required in the question. Like here, no more than two words or a number for each answer. The Great Pyramid materials: limestone and granite, estimated dash blocks. So tables are going to be given like this, and before you start the question, read the table and read what each row and column is going to tell, and then just fill in as in when the question is following. Again, the question, so the first answer which would be in the passage which they read out would be the first, then second, then third, then fourth. So after reading this, don't just go to this question. You need to be aware that next answer would be given for this part. Moving on, remember that tables often use note form. In note form, we sometimes leave out, again, note form. Now you know what note forms are. They leave out the articles and they leave out the auxiliary verbs. Step by step approach: look at the table before you do and look at the question, and ask yourself what is the main idea of the passage which they have just read, and then complete it. Next, we have the summary completion. So this is another type of listening question which they can give, is that they will read out a passage for you and give out the summary of the passage for you, and then they will leave some gaps between the summary, and you are basically supposed to fill in the blanks of the summary by your listening ability. Okay, so again, before starting with this, first you have to read the questions and read the title, which would be easier for you to answer. As you listen, follow the summary for the ideas and specific words. So you need to always make sure that the answers which you are writing are going to be as it is from the passage in order to match with the answer key. Next, we have what is the form completion. So we all know what forms are. We have filled hundreds of forms in our lifetime, like admission form, medical form, and so on. So like this, you get a interview form: name, position you're applying for, previous experience. So you just have to write it down as it is. And sometimes when there are names in the question, the speaker basically even gives you out the spelling of the surname. For example, if his surname is Gomez, then the reader is going to say Robert Gomez, and it will spell out Gomez. So when they say that, you need to write it down. And when they say Gomez, you know that Z is also Z. That's a small pointer. One more thing: numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0. When they say 0, you know that it is 0. When they say null, you know it is 0 again. When they say not, that is also 0. So if I say 106, you know it is 106. If I say 106, that also means 106. If I say 106, that again also means 106. You need to keep these small tiny things in your mind. If you have to listen to a name, the speaker will spell out the name. You need to write down the name exactly as you hear it. If you make a spelling mistake, then you will be losing your marks. Remember that forms that use note form, again, they leave out these. Step-by-step approach: look for the information, decide what's missing, predict the answer, and complete the particular form. See, what I believe is that in listening skills, you can always get full marks, because the answers are literally dictated to you and your only task is to write it down. So out of all these sections, I believe that it is the easiest for you to score in the listening skills. And then again, completing using words from a list. So in the earlier one, words were not given as options. Now you have an option. Now you need to put them in whatever as you hear. There are always more words in box than there are gaps. So don't use all. Okay, so they will give you more options, but the blanks would be less. Use only as much as you require. Remember that you probably won't hear the words in the box. In the recording, the ideas will be expressed using different words, so that would be synonymous. Before you listen, read the title if there is none and the summary to understand the general meaning. Click the part of speech you need. Check the part of speech you need. All right. So you obviously always read the question. This is the key rule of the listening skills test, that the first thing you need to do before answering any sort of question is that you are reading the question thoroughly and you are beginning with it after you read the particular question. Okay, flowchart completion. Now again, this is a flowchart completion, but the only difference is that a box is given over here. There are more words than there are gaps, so you won't use all your words. Remember that you might not hear the words in the box. Again, same thing. Now, when you see the short answer questions, you can see that no more than 3 words or a number for each answer. Okay, so 2 words are what they need. Before you listen, read the question. Try to predict the language. Note if you need to listen. As you listen, write exactly what you hear. Okay. Very basic things these are, but you need to be aware. Alright, so that's it with our listening section. Now we move on to our Ielts academic reading section. The same way we discussed the entire listening skills, and now we know the approach, how to follow the listening skills. And now when we also will be doing the practice tests, you will realize that the tips and tricks which we learned, and we are aware of the entire format type, that is going to help us. The same way we are going to start with the reading section. Now reading section more or less comprises of the comprehension reading. So just like the listening skills, even in your reading skills, I believe that the answer is given in front of you, right? If you read the passage properly and if you understand the essence of the passage properly, then the answers are also given right in front of you. So I also think that the reading section is very easy. So the time which is given is again 60 minutes, okay, and the 60 minutes will also include all your copy pasting and everything together. It would be taking 60 minutes. Number of passages which are given to you are 3, so you have 3 different passages using which you have to answer the questions. Passages vary in length, but they are usually about 700 to 800 words, so that is okay. And the source of these particular passages are usually magazines, books, and newspapers, and journals, or any other topic which are of general interest. So, like you might have had comprehension in your school papers, college papers, so all of them also take your question papers from the periodicals and stuff like that only. So some of the passages can be descriptive in nature, factual in nature, and some might also be in opinions as well. Like that is basically talking about someone's particular point of view and so on. The passages may also contain illustrations, graphs, and diagrams. So that is to test your understanding of the diagrams in English language as well. And if there are any sort of technical terms which are given in the questions, you don't have to worry about that, because the IELTS, they do not expect you to know the meaning of every technical term. They will give you a glossary at the bottom of the page which would be containing the meaning of the word. Then you have 40 questions to answer, and each passage basically has 2 to 3 tasks. The number of questions will obviously vary, so it's similar to the pattern of the listening skills, and marks per question would be 1. Alright, so how is the marking done? Let's start with that. So again, here also it is a band score, and overview of the task types. We have multiple choice questions. So multiple choice questions would be the same thing like we have already discussed for the listening skills. Then we have the identifying task. Identifying task is, these are true false not given task, or yes no not given task. With true false not given, you need to identify information in the passage. With yes no not given, you need to identify writer's views or writer's claims. So true and false are always factual in nature. Yes or no or according to the author's perspective. Then we have the matching tasks. So you might have to match information to the paragraph or section of the passage where it appears. You might have to match headings to the paragraphs or sections of the passages. You might have to match features of the paragraph. You might have to match sentence endings. So these are, again, this is very similar to the listening skills passage matching questions as well. Completion of tasks using words from the passage. You have to find a word or short phrase from the passage to complete the sentences, notes, a summary, a table, a flowchart, or labels on the diagram. In each task, you will be told the maximum number of words you need to find. Completion tasks using words from a list. So, a list is given and you are supposed to complete it. Again, I'm not going into the details of it since it is very similar to the listening one. Then we have short answer questions. Now, that again, I've told you about it. So, what are the tips which you need to keep in mind when you are solving the reading section? Read the information which is given before starting the question very, very clearly, since many of them make silly mistakes. Even though their knowledge is correct, they do not read the question properly, they do not read the instructions properly, due to which they lose marks. So, when you know that when you know that they require only, let's say, 3 words, then why are you writing 5 words in the answer, right? So that is like you are making mistakes which are very, very basic. Moving on. All right, so choose one word only from the passage for each answer. So you need one word only. If this is given in the question, then you know that only one word must be given in the answer. So the word which you are putting in the answer should be the exact word which is given in the passage. Okay, and contractions, again, the high is equal to or it didn't, and all of those are not tested ever. And when you use a hyphenated words, then they are going to be counted as one word only. No more than 2 words, you know. Okay, so now these you already know. I'm not going to discuss these because it's the same as the listening skills. Use your time well. So this is something which you need to keep in mind, that the time is the most important thing when it comes to the test, right? So you have 60 minutes for the whole test. If you spend too long on the first or second passage, you won't have enough time for the final passage. Aim to spend no more than 20 minutes on each passage. So make sure you need to keep an aim in your mind that you need to complete the passages within 15 minutes. When you keep that as your target, that's when you get done with it in the given 20-minute guideline. Okay, read the passages in the right way. Skimming. Now, what is skimming? Skimming is brushing through the passage. It is a good idea to skim each passage before starting the task. It means that you should read it quickly to get a gist. Okay, and then you can scan then you read the question and then you look for the specific answers. After that, you can read for detail. So, because some of the answers require you to read the passage in further detail, and then you are going to answer the questions, and make sure to answer each and every question, because like I've mentioned, there is no negative marking, so you don't want to be missing any of the questions. Even if you do not know the answer, make sure to just give an answer, because that is what is going to help you. How to do each tasks? So you have multiple choice questions. You know what multiple choice are. You are going to read the passage and tick on the correct answer. Very simple, just like how you've been doing it all your school life, so nothing new here. And then we have multiple choice questions. Always follow the order of the passage. So this is again similar to the listening section, right? And read this. If you want, you can pause and read this. The 3 incorrect answer options are called distractors. So what are distractors? Distractors basically are distracting you from the exact correct answer. So you need to keep that in mind, and you need to make sure that you are not making a mistake of getting distracted by the distractors. Alright. The passage doesn't mention information in the distractor. So If there is a distractor option which is given and you know that the passage said nothing about them, then probably that is not the right answer, right? You can't infer from the passage what the distractor says. So if you are not supposed to assume things, right? You need to consider what is exactly given in the passage, right? You can't be making assumptions or using your general knowledge in the reading comprehensions, because the answer which they want is not to test your IQ or an intellectual ability, but it is to test your English grasping skills. Okay. One more thing to keep in mind, sometimes they give you a distractor which have two things to in them. Like for example, the boy is wearing red and his shoes are pink. If the boy is wearing red, that part is correct, but his shoes are not pink, the shoes are black. Then the option is incorrect. Why is the option incorrect? Because only one part, only the first half of the option is factually correct. Alright. Multiple choice, more than one answer. Sometimes there are more than one answer. We have discussed all that, right? Okay. True, false, not given. So if something is true, you are going to tick on true. If something is false, you are going to click on false. If something is not at all talked about in the particular passage, then that is basically not given. Okay, so if something is not mentioned in the paragraph, then that is not false, that is not given. Read and understand the first statement, scan the passage, carefully compare the passage, be careful with false and not given. So what's the difference between false and not given? Not given means that the statement isn't true and it isn't false. It is just not mentioned in the paragraph, so we cannot say any say in it. Until and unless something says clearly that this is not true, until that case you cannot assume something to be false, right? If the passage has not talked about a particular topic, then in that case you cannot be assuming that the statement is false. The statement would be not given. So what's the difference between true, false and yes, no? True and false are factual in nature. Yes, no are according to the perspectives and the understanding of the author. Okay. Read and understand the first statement. Scan the passage from the top. Okay. Be careful with no and not given. No is again the author's opinion that this is not true. But if something is not spoken by the author in the passage, then you are going to tick on not given. Matching headings. So this is again very similar to the listening skills assessment like we have already done. So you will be given a list of headings and you are going to be given a passage. You have to basically match a particular thing to the particular section and give it a name or give it the heading. Sometimes you have to match headings to paragraphs. Sometimes, as an example on the previous way, you have to match headings to sections. A section is just a group of paragraphs. Read the first paragraph for a gist. Ask yourself what is the main objective, what is the main idea behind the passage, and then you are supposed to read the list and see what suits the best for it. Okay, again, write the answer as a lower case Roman numeral. The exact way like it is given, that is the exact way you have to write in the answer. Don't make any mistake in typing. Again, that is just going to be you losing marks for no reason. Matching information. Now again, this is going to be a matching information the same way. If the instructions say NB, that means you may use any letter more than once. So what is the meaning of NB? You need to be aware of that. NB is basically nota bene. That means it is Latin for note well, right? And if the instructions say this, then at least one paragraph will be the answer to at least two questions, right? So only one thing will have two answers. Keep that in mind. Okay, so matching headings. Tasks uses Roman numerals. Task doesn't use Roman numerals. Task focuses on the main idea. Read the paragraph. Okay. Take a moment, pause the video, and read this for your understanding. We've already discussed this.